Welcome into Jungle Tales, a Pirate Baseball podcast, episode 70. We are less than 2 weeks from the start of the season. This time 2 weeks from now, and we'll have a game in the books against the Xavier Musketeers. Tonight we're talking Pirate Baseball past and present. And before we welcome in our guest, let me welcome in my co-host, former East Carolina pitcher John White. Wool, how are you?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it's getting very close. You can smell it coming, even though it's frigid in North Carolina. But great to be here and speaking with Ryan tonight.
Yeah, definitely not baseball weather, but hopefully warmer days are ahead. And now let's welcome in the man with all the stats, Johnny Robertson. JR, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well, fellas. I got a few degrees on you, John. I think I'm at 7 right now here in Haymarket. So, yeah, I think we get this cold weather out of the way. We'll be good for opening day, hopefully.
Tonight, guys, we're, as you see there on the screen for our viewers on Facebook, YouTube, as well as X, definitely chime in and let us hear from you throughout the show. But we are visiting with former East Carolina catcher and DH, Ryan McCrystal. Ryan, how are you?
Doing great. Good to be here.
Yeah, we appreciate your time. We know you're going to be leaving, heading off to Arizona here in the next few days as we're discussing pre-show. But before you do that, it's great to be able to catch up with you. Obviously, you're in the Cincinnati Reds organization. But before we dive into the here and now, let's just go back. I think you were born in Richmond, Virginia. You grew up there, but then you moved to Fuquay. Had the opportunity during your time there at Fuquay to win a state title. But tell us a little about your childhood. And then I know you were no stranger to East Carolina because your parents attended ECU.
Yeah, absolutely. So, about 7 years old when I moved here from Richmond, I went to my first ECU football game. And my first really memories of going to any sporting event is Justin Hardy at ECU and Shane Carden. It was kind of opened my eyes to what sports can do and what it does to people that are there. And obviously ECU's got the best fans in the country, and saw that from a really young age, probably 8, 9 was when I really got into going to ECU events, tailgating, all that stuff. And it was awesome. And then just really lucky to be around great baseball people all the time. You know, Fuquay's known its baseball program's always really good. And I was lucky that I was able to get on the map, and luckily I got talking with Coach Palumbo when I was a sophomore, probably my sophomore fall. I think I committed my sophomore winter. And at the time, I was a much better pitcher than I was catcher. Luckily, I made some strides in the hitting department because I was not quite ready to hit until about my senior year in high school, and just got really, really lucky and was really, really happy to be able to go where my parents went and an hour and a half away from my mom, dad, brother. It was a really, really good experience.
Yeah, so growing up, in addition to baseball, what else did you play, if anything?
Yeah, I played basketball a lot. I always wanted to play football, but I saved that more for tailgates and stuff. My uncle was a really good running back over in Tennessee in high school, but too many concussions, and he doesn't remember the picture he took with my parents on a state championship his senior year because he had a concussion so bad, and so he was like, "Don't ever let him play football." And luckily, I didn't. I mean, I stayed healthy. I stayed healthy enough to be where I am now. So I think it was a blessing in disguise. But yeah, I played basketball for a while growing up. I loved it, but it was too much running for a catcher like me. So I was like, I think my sophomore year of high school, I was like, I think I'm going to focus a little more on the baseball side of things here, so I don't have to do suicides if we miss too many layups or something.
Yes,
Yeah, that is
tell us a
something.
little bit.
Sorry, go ahead,
Bub. I was going to ask. Tell us a little bit about your pitching game. I'm interested in that in high school, how that was, how it went, and how you transitioned over to catching.
About pitching?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually committed to ECU as a two-way. I went there as a two-way, and I partially tore my UCL my junior year of high school, and so I had to get a PRP shot, like the injection. I don't know exactly what it does, but it worked on my elbow. It kind of pulled everything back together in there, so I didn't have to worry about Tommy John or anything. And so during that span, I was able to hit a little bit more than I was pitch, and I ended up kind of moving along as a hitter. And then I met like the best hitting coach I've ever had, Chad Anderson, for the Dirtbags. I was on the second team actually, my last year of the Dirtbag. I didn't make the top team. I was on the second team, hitting behind a guy named Khalil Watson, and Chad was unbelievable. He just like taught me how to hit, not care about results, care about how your body moves, and care about like just how you're going about everything. And it was huge for me. And so from that point on, I just kind of skyrocketed as a hitter. Like I've always loved hitting more than anything. I kind of just threw hard. That's why I was a pitcher. But I think I love the game of baseball so much. And I think catching allowed me to be in the game as much as possible. And calling a game is one of my favorite things in the world. And building relationships with pitchers is something I learned a ton at ECU. And I kind of just pulled away from the whole pitching thing. I've always had a good arm, but I threw one bullpen at ECU at College of Charleston on the Thursday practice. And this is a shout out to Brady Austin, our manager. He had to catch me and I spiked, I kid you not, every slider, like 48 feet. And they were like, I think we're going to separate you from the pitching word. I don't think you're allowed to ever associate yourself with pitching at East Carolina again. And my first college homer was that weekend, so that kind of worked out a little bit, but that was about the end of my pitching days.
Yeah, there comes a time when you have to figure out what you really want to do, and a lot of times coaches will figure that out for you. And I love to hit myself, but pitching was where I was going to go with it. But it's very impressive that you were recruited to East Carolina as a two-way. That doesn't happen very often for a lot of people. I don't think people understand how hard that is. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I love pitching. It was just, I think I have to be doing something. I think you have a lot of downtime as a pitcher. And so I don't think that really would have worked out well with me. Coach Godwin already thought I talked enough. I don't think he needed me to be bored all the time.
Well, the pitching, the fact that you were interested in pitching and pitched yourself, it had to help you as a catcher, I would think, trying to get in their head because, I saw one of the abstract takeouts of a Red Scouting report on you. I saw it a couple of days ago, but one of the high points was you're very in control of pitchers and understand how to control pitchers, and that's very important in the Red system, is what the report said. But is that partly because you kind of know what they're trying to do?
Yeah, I think that definitely plays a part. I think it's always a chess game. Like people can say like simplify it all you want, but in reality, that when it comes down to trying to be the best in the world at something, it's a chess game. And there's a video actually that I love. It's Greg Maddux and Barry Bonds are watching the same video on a homer that Bonds hit off of Greg Maddux, and they're saying the same stuff, one in hitter term, one in pitcher's terms, and it's just like the coolest thing ever to me. Like it's just the one-on-one, but as a catcher, it's 2-on-1 now. Like if I can think the same way the pitcher thinks, that's two people, and that's such an advantage against one hitter. And so it helps so much with me pitching, but I really was never good enough at pitching to fully understand what like these guys at ECU or in the Red system were doing, because I was never able to quite do what they do, and I might talk up the splitter that Trey taught me, but it's really not that good. And it's a lot more fun catching their really good stuff. But I think that one of the biggest things I actually got at ECU was learning how to handle a pitching staff. Like you're around guys all the time. Like the closer you are with these guys and the more they trust you, the better they're going to be, because it is a 2v1 out there and you don't want it to feel like it's a 1v1. I think you want to try and use that to your advantage as much as you can. And so the relationship side of it is like the most fun thing in the world to me. Like if I can find something to help my pitcher out that day, whether he has his A stuff, whether he has his D stuff, like if I can get him through the innings he's supposed to throw, if I can help him in his career, I think like that's a win for me,
Well, in 24, when you were, your last season as a junior, I believe you caught every one of Zach Root's starts, didn't you? And yeah. I'm just curious, how does that happen? Obviously, you two had you were very much in tune with each other, but did he request, you personally, or did you guys? How did that come to be? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so it was one of those things where I think he did request that I catch him. I kind of always Root's just. He's Zach Root. I don't know how to explain it. He's one of the best pitchers I've ever caught, but he's uniquely Zach Root. And I think like understanding that is very important. I think that I kind of understood that like a little bit. Like I didn't really ever like conforming to like the way people wanted me to act, if that makes sense. I wanted to like, I'm too talkative, sure, but like I think being myself is like something that I really pride myself on. I think he did that too, but a lot of people kind of took it as being cocky or being a little bit ignorant. But I kind of tried to see Zach Root for who he was, and I think he kind of saw that, and I think that it played a part in me catching him every Saturday. I think that he liked throwing to me because he knew that as a person, I respected him as well. And so I think that definitely played a part in it. But it was a really, really fun year catching him all year because his stuff is ridiculous. Other than his first cutter of every single start, he would spike 4 miles an hour harder than all the other ones he threw. Other than that, it was awesome.
And you caught Norby for one game as well, I think, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did. I caught all of them all the time. I don't even remember which guys started something, you know.
Yeah, and that's kind of something that's under the radar that people don't understand, that the catcher has to develop a rapport with all these different pitchers and understand, their style. And they develop that on and off the field, but it's an incredible, partnership that you develop with these guys over time. And I've, in my personal history, it can be tough at times. Maybe you're not on the same page one game, but that's what you develop. That's what they're teaching you out there, and you got to figure that out. And the catcher figures it out for you. He knows what kind of stuff you have that day. A lot of
Yeah.
times, your head coach is going to ask you, does he have the stuff to stay in? And the catcher knows best, and that's what's important about the catching position. And I really didn't learn that till I got to college. So, yeah, what you said, agree 100%. It's an incredible position to play and very tough. People don't really understand it. Not most players do, but the normal fan doesn't understand how difficult catching is.
Yeah, and that's why I loved having AK as our pitching coach, because he was a catcher too, and he was diving into the pitching world, and I 100% support that guy in everything that he does. Like, just talking to him about, like, why did we throw this in this count we threw it in? Like, what are you seeing that I'm not seeing, and what am I seeing that you're not seeing? Because he understands too that my vantage point's different than his, but he's seeing the whole thing, and I'm just seeing it from my point of view. So, like, what is he seeing that I'm not seeing, and like, how can we work together to throw the right pitch in every situation we need to, And I think I had to take a step back for myself and stop thinking that I always knew better. And I think that I had to really learn, like, just sit back and learn, like, from all the guys that had already done it before me. Like, they were coaching, their playing careers were over, and they've seen a lot more than I'd seen. And so really throughout my time there, I always got a little bit better at that. But my junior year, I think I finally was able to listen and not think that I always knew better than everyone else. And that's when I really took off learning just pitch calling and understanding relationships and guys like that. And AK was a huge part of that.
Yeah, and you mentioned it's a chess match type thing, and it is a pitch by pitch. And when you get to college, that's when you start realizing. When you're in high school, it's like playing probably checkers compared to what you have to do in college. And every pitch is different, and your positioning, and you're kind of the field general. I mean, you are the field general out there, so you have a unique perspective that no one else gets to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're totally right about, like, high school baseball. I was kind of able to sit on whatever I wanted to and hit it. And when you get to college, like, the guy's best pitch probably is not his fastball anymore. He's going to use that the best of his ability, and then his other stuff is probably going to be the swing and miss stuff. And learning how to commit to an approach was probably the hardest adjustment that I had to make in college, because it is chess, and one way to make it a lot easier is to stick to a plan. And I was not very good at that for my first 2 years there, until I finally realized, like, I'd rather stick to something and get out while I was committing to a plan that I knew worked best for me and the other 8 guys in the lineup, versus I want to hit this, I'm going to go hit this. And so learning, I'm not very good at chess in real life, but I'm not bad at it at the plate and behind it.
I have a question about your freshman season. Okay, so Elon, Danny Beal was starting, and that was the first official start for you at catcher.
Mm-hmm.
And so here you are. It's your first game. You're starting, and you had to catch 7 different pitchers in that game. It was Danny, and then Carter Spivey, Zach Agnos, Trey Savage, Wyatt Lunsford Shankman, CJ Mayhew, and then Josh Gross finished it off. But did that add to the, like, complexity of your first start when you have 7 different guys throwing the ball at you?
I think it does to an extent, but I think at the same time, as a freshman, you kind of have a tendency to speed the game up yourself. I think that I definitely struggle with that, just overthinking things in the first place. And so luckily AK, they're calling pitches and stuff, so I'm kind of able to settle in a little bit. I didn't have to do a ton on my own, but I think that anything was going to speed me up that day. And I think that the 7 pitchers thing definitely did not help me slow down at all.
Okay. And then while we're still on Elon, when you were a senior, do you remember this game, or do you remember what was going through your head? You caught one of the very few complete game no-hit shutouts in Pirate history. Now, it was only 7 innings, but still, it's in the record book. And you were the starting catcher, but it was, I think, Jaden Winter started the game, and then Chris Kaler came in, and then Parker Thomas closed it out. But were you aware of what was going on there, or did you just weren't even thinking about it?
Yeah. Only thing I'm going to clarify is it was my junior year. I did only stay there.
Oh, yeah,
for 3
yeah. Yeah.
I was like, I know I'm
24.
getting older now. I want to try and make sure I'm as young as possible.
No, wait, that was wishful thinking on my part.
No, you always know what's going on. Like the scoreboard doesn't lie. It's right in front of you, especially when you're catching. But the whole goal is to attack where you are right now. And I think Jaden did such a good job of that day. And Jaden's somebody that I wish that he had more success at ECU because he's like one of my best friends still. I played with him since I was 14 years old. He's actually in my wedding in October. He still lives in Holly Springs right next to where I live during the off season. So he's such a good dude. And like, I wish him the best at Charlotte. It didn't work out for him the way he wanted to at ECU, but I think he's still got a really good future ahead of him. But like that day, he just had his stuff, and 4 innings of no hit. Plus I'm pretty sure we scored a lot early in that game, and that definitely helps. But yeah, the last 2 innings of that thing, I was shaking a little bit. And I'm pretty sure there was a play. I don't remember exactly what it was, vaguely in my head, but there was a ridiculously good defensive play that saved it. And it was huge. And I was so nervous before that. But once the play was made, I was like, all right, well, this is meant to be. So we're going to be okay. It's going to happen.
Yeah, I was telling Bubba that a no hitter always requires maybe a lucky play or a great play, that type of stuff to happen. But have you ever caught one that was one pitcher only, not a combined no hitter?
I never have. Baseball's
Yeah.
totally changing. Obviously, I'm sure you guys know. Like, it's very rare you see a pitcher, especially in college or in the minor leagues. Like, they're always on pitch counts, or it's always let's get the freshest guy in. So it's very
Yeah.
rare you see guys go that long anymore. I'm hoping one day here soon I'm able to be there for that.
Yeah, and what I was getting to is at what point because you have communication with the pitcher in the game, but you also have the in the dugout communication when you start saying, okay, I don't have to talk to that guy in the dugout anymore with any communication. He's got his stuff, and we'll just communicate on the field. That's kind of where I was going with it.
Yeah, I think, it always depends on the guy, no matter how they're throwing. Like a guy like Trey, I'm not going to talk to. He doesn't need me to talk to him and like pump him up or help him out. Like, he's just Trey. I don't need to talk to him. And then, especially on his good days, you just stay away and let him do what he's doing because his good days are as good as anybody's. But it obviously is very dependent on who the guy is. But I think early on, like first time through the order, like if this guy is like, if he has everything working, which is probably 15% of the time, it's one of those days, and you just go out there and let them be them. You just kind of try and support them any way you can. But for the most part, I'm not going to talk to you unless you're somebody that needs to be talked to. And in which case, as a talker, I'm more than willing to go talk to them. But I'm going to try and keep it very simple and let them do what they're best at doing.
Yeah, and it's funny that Trey ended up with Toronto, who had Max Scherzer, who's legendary for nobody being able to talk to him during a game. So
Yeah.
Trey getting to play with him during the World Series. What did you think about that, by the way? We'll get back to this, but what about Trey in the World Series?
I thought that was one of the most fun things to ever watch. And like, it couldn't happen to a better guy too. Like obviously I've always told people I think his splitter is the best pitch that I've ever caught in my life. And it was awful having to face that during inter squads all the time. But it was really fun when I was catching during the inter squads. But like, it's just crazy because he's the exact same repertoire as he had for the last 2 years at ECU. And it's worked at the highest level now. Like, there's nowhere else to go. And it's just ridiculously cool to see. Like, I texted him during like one of their press days because Shane Bieber called it Eastern Carolina. And so I texted him and said, you better jump Shane for calling it Eastern Carolina, because that obviously we hate when that happens. And he texted me back like, I think it was after his start on the first day, and said Shane said he doesn't care about anything east of the Mississippi. And I was like, this is pretty ridiculous that this dude's just responding to me right after he pitches in game 1 of the World Series. But also, I'm glad that he told Shane our thoughts on that.
Yeah, that makes our fandom stand up. But explain to people how his slider's different compared to a normal slider.
Yeah. So, I mean, nowadays, obviously, there's a lot of different types of sliders, like sweepers, regular slider, which is just kind of a tighter shorter one, and then it's all very arm slot dependent. And so obviously Trey's got one of the highest release points in the big leagues really that I've ever seen. And it just kind of gradually kept moving farther and farther up. But with his release point, it has slider dot spin. And so when you see that, you're kind of accustomed to seeing it move a certain way at a certain speed. And so when you see it, your mind tells you what it's going to do, no matter what angle it starts. But the issue with Trey is that if he gets on the side of one, it moves like a regular righty slider. But if he throws it like at his normal arm slot, at his normal release point, it almost moves like a lefty slider. And so it's so hard to hit when it's going the wrong way in your head. Like there's not much you can do. Like we've hit our whole lives, obviously. And so when you see a ball go the wrong way, you're like, there's nothing I can do in my head when that ball's in the way to tell myself not to swing where I think it's going to be. Like the only way to do that is like I've had to learn over time, like to pick windows on where to hit. But even then, it's like his stuff's so good, and his splitter doesn't move to the last second too. It's like it all moves the wrong way, and it's all elite. It's not like it's just moving the wrong way; it's moving the wrong way a lot and late.
Yes. Swing and miss for both those pitches is tremendous. But you mentioned that dot, so for the listeners, as a hitter, the tighter that dot is, the least chance you have of hitting that thing. You hope to see a bigger circle when that pitch is coming in. And as you get the pitchers like Trey and get to the big league, you start seeing a very tight dot on pitches like that. And that's not a good thing for hitters.
No, you definitely want to see a bigger one and kind of a swoopier one. It's not in a circle, kind of like the loopier, like it's changing when the wind hits it kind of slider. Those are the ones that you hit a long way.
So Ryan,
all right,
JR,
Bubba, back to you, bud.
Oh, you're good. Ryan, JR, a couple minutes ago asked you about that 2022 season. So if you would take us back and, kind of detail that transition to Division I baseball and your growth, not only individually, but collectively. Last year, as Pirate fans know, we went through a very challenging regular season, but got it together, won the tournament, and then had a nice showing in the regionals down in Conway. But, that 2022 season, it was a similar situation, not exactly the same, but about halfway home, we were right around the 500 mark. I think 14-13, and from that point on, we went 32-8.
Yeah, so that 2022 season was one of the most fun seasons I've ever been a part of. Like the fact that we were able to not only turn it around, but believe we were the best team in the country once we started to turn it around. It was very, very unique, and I think that's where the culture that we do build at ECU, like that's where I like completely bought into it. It was like unbelievable. Like I'll be the first one to admit now, like I was a little bit too selfish as a freshman, and I'm sure that all the guys I played with would tell you that. Like obviously, like I had a pretty good high school career. I came into ECU. I thought like I'm going to be the man, and it's just never the way that it works out. And so I didn't play as much as I wanted to. And at first, I kind of put my head down and was like, man, this isn't fair, But then again, it's totally fair because I'm the one that is telling coach that you should or should not play me. It's not him making a decision. Ultimately, every day we practice and the way we carry ourselves every day is what's determining if you're in the lineup or not. And I didn't do enough to get my name in the lineup, but it took me the first 3/4 of my freshman year to realize that. And once I was able to realize that, I was able to, as we always say at school, like be where your feet are. And it's such a simple saying, but it's so hard to completely grasp until you actually look yourself in the mirror and you're willing to admit the things that you don't want to admit to yourself. And I wasn't good enough yet, like I wasn't good enough to play control a game as a freshman. And once I learned that and I put the same effort in catching in the bullpen as I would have if I was playing in the game, I actually saw growth. And I think our whole team kind of took that mentality of like, I'm going to do whatever I can that's like just on this one day to help us win this day. And you end up winning 20 games in a row when you do that. And it was surreal, really, to win that 20th game. And I really wish we would have swept the regional that year because that would have been 21 in a row. Or then we could have swept the super and won like 23 in a row, which obviously everyone was like, it's meant to be. And I agreed until it didn't happen. But it was a pretty surreal year. And it was a huge learning curve for me, like learning how to play team baseball and learning how to get outside of myself a little bit.
Yeah, that first fall season is a wake up call when you come out of high school. Like you mentioned, you think you've done this, that, and the other, and it's just going to merge into how you get with the team in college, but it just one of the biggest wake up calls you'll ever get when you join a college baseball team like East Carolina.
Yeah, absolutely. And I again, first one to admit, like I did not handle it the right way at all. And like I wish I could go back and do it again, but at the same time, I think it definitely helped me into the person that I am today. Like I don't think I'd be in the mindset that I am now. I don't think I'd be the person I am now if I didn't fail as much as I did that year, if I didn't struggle as much as I did that year. It's just it's hard to see that when you're in the moment, when you're struggling. It's hard to be like it's going to be a lot better. But I think that too is where like my faith came into play, and it definitely that's kind of where my faith sprouted at ECU was like, okay, it's happening for a reason. Like God's challenged me for a reason. Like what can I do today to become closer to him and closer to all the people around me? And like, it's just something at ECU that like, once I learned that, like how to approach things like that, it just kind of was it opened my eyes to the real world a little bit.
Ryan, I have a question about mental approach. In 22 and 23, this is kind of a crazy stat, but when you started the game as a catcher, you were 12 for 39, batting 308. But when you either played DH or came in the game in the later innings, you batted 157, 11 for 70. But when you were a junior in 24, you kind of like something clicked or something, or this is just a big coincidence. But in games that you actually caught behind the plate, you batted 344. And in games where you DH'd or came in the game later, you batted 347 and had a tremendous year all around. I think you finished 346. So is there any difference in your mentality in the batter's box when you're not starting the game behind the plate, or is that just maybe a big coincidence?
No, it's definitely not a coincidence. And I'll stand by the fact that pinch hitting is the hardest job in baseball, and I don't think it's even close. Like to come into a game towards the end of the game, you're cold after warming up, you're cold for 2.5 hours. To go in there and to do what I think is the hardest thing in all of sports, which is hit a baseball that's moving 90 miles an hour. It's so unbelievably difficult to do. And like you have to be a certain kind of person to do that. And actually, one of my coaches in Daytona last year, Lenny Harris, is the all-time pinch hit leader. And when I hear that guy talk, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. You're the all-time pinch hit leader because you talk about never in your life have you ever missed a first pitch fastball. And I'm like, well, that makes sense for pinch hitting because you're supposed to swing early if you're pinch hitting. But it took me a little while to learn that from the pinch hitting side of things, which is why like my freshman year and sophomore year, I kind of struggled at that. But I think that my junior year, I just kind of learned like, what do I need to do when I'm DHing during the game to stay as locked in as possible? Because my attention can get everywhere, every which way. I can really focus on the bat at bats, or I can choose to focus on what I'm going to do in my next at bat. And I can also understand, and Carter Cunningham helped me out with this a ton. And again, I'm gonna go back to faith here, where it's like, God knows what's going to happen to you. Like he's not gonna make anything happen that is not going to be for the better as long as you handle it the right way. And so I think that I used to really, if I went 0 for 2, I was going to go 0 for 4. But I think that I approached each at bat with the same intensity, no matter what the result was prior. And I think that my junior year, that totally turned around, and I was able to find little routines throughout the games when I was DHing where I'd go under in the tunnel and hit off the tee a little bit, like 3 batters before, typically I would go and hit in the cage, and I'd hit like 6 balls into the net at different spots on the plate, just so that I'd make sure my body was loose for everything that I could possibly need to cover during my at bat. And it was awesome to actually be able to make that adjustment, but also to grow a little bit in the mental game aspect.
Yeah, and Johnny's our stats guy, and I'm not sure if he has all this, but one thing that stands out when I look at your career is how well you produce with runners on base. It's incredible. You are a run producer, and I can see why Cincinnati, brought you up on that March 14th, 2025 we were talking about. So what do you attribute to the focus when it comes to runners on base compared to, another at bat?
Yeah, I think I know I've learned myself enough now to know like my job is to get runs in, and how you go about doing that, and like learning situations. And really the best thing I was ever told was like when there's guys on base, like the pressure's not on the guy at the plate to get him in. The pressure's on the pitcher to keep them from scoring. Like he's the one that is backed up against the wall. And I also learned that in situations like that, like committing to your approach and being really, really aggressive in the strike zone, like that's where my success is. And I learned like a lot of times, like you have reports on guys now. There's so much information out there, and like especially like last year, it was crazy the difference between hitting with guys on base versus guys not on base. And a big adjustment I made was like, I'm going to act like the guys on second and third right here because I'm really good when that's the case. So why not treat every at bat like I'm just trying to get a run in from third base or I'm trying to get a guy in from second base? And typically when you see guys fall in, there's guys in second and third, or there's a guy in scoring position, pitchers go and try and rely on their best stuff, and they'll throw a lot more off-speed pitches, but they also will try and get ahead because the most stressful thing for a pitcher is to be behind in the count with guys on base already. And I typically hit somewhere in the middle of the order, so everyone around me can rake for the most part. And so I think being really, really aggressive, but being aggressive towards the plan you're trying to accomplish is something that I really focus in on when guys are on base. And it's something that I try and do when guys aren't on base, but sometimes they're okay walking me because I'm not really going to go steal second, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, it's working because in your short pro career, you're 7 for 14, batting 500 with when there's a runner on third base. So I was going to mention that, Will, but you expanded.
Yeah, but I was going towards the area of I saw he had a 50, 82 RBIs in 50 games.
Yeah, no, you expanded on it more than I
yeah,
would
no,
have,
I was.
so.
I'm just. It stands out like a sore thumb how well he hits with the. And I say he's on here talking about how well Ryan hits with runners on base.
Yeah. Hey, Ryan, also when you were your junior season, your final one at East Carolina, you were 6 of 8 when runners tried to steal on you. You even threw out Vance Honeycutt, which nobody seemed to be able to do. So, I mean, that was just a tremendous season for you. I think you threw out 2 in one game. It was the I want to say, I'll come back to that. I know you did it. I think it was South Florida. It was South Florida. You threw out 2 runners in the same game, but you were 6 for 8 on stolen base attempts, throwing them out. So, I mean, that was very impressive. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I love throwing the baseball. Like, I think defensively as a catcher, like you affect the game in so many ways. And I think part of the reason, like my junior year, I had so much confidence throwing guys out is like we talked about me catching Root, and he's a lefty and he had a pretty good move. And I think that it was harder for guys to get really good jumps at the same time. But I also think like I take so much pride in if I can get an out when the guy steals and my pitcher has another out that he didn't get, but we got, because again, it's 2v1. Like if I can get him off the bases and like help my pitcher get through another clean inning, like that's a huge thing. And that's really something that I take pride in. And I think it's something that a lot of catchers take pride in is how many times can I help my pitcher get out of something that will help him build momentum and help him maybe have a better start than he was going to in the first place.
Yeah. Hey, one follow-up question on that, Ryan. You were also 2 for 2 in stolen base attempts. So how do you are you watching the catcher? What determines that you're going? Because both times, I mean, it really wasn't that close. So
I'm pretty sure
how did it happen?
I'm pretty sure both times I was the backside runner of a double steal though. And when that's the case, you can like, I take pride in being a good base runner, but at the same time, I'm not fast. So I have to anticipate things a lot more. And so I think that being the backside runner and knowing that I'm slow, it's like I have to get a good jump and I have to go when I see the guy on second base go. Because I can't sit there and wait around and like guess, is he going to go? Is he going to go? I have to anticipate him going. Like I have to anticipate a ball in the dirt and try and get a good jump because I'm not just going to beat it out. Like I'm not Dixon Williams. I can't just go a little bit late, but I can fly to second base and I'm safe, you know? Like even in the minor leagues this year, I was safe on the backside of a double steal. And almost every time they're trying to throw me out because the odds are the guy in front of me was faster than me and he's going to get a better jump. Third base is an easier base to steal. So I know that I have to anticipate, and it's something that we did a lot at ECU was just practicing base running all the time. Coach Palumbo does a great job with it. And so I definitely think that I take pride in being a good base runner, but I think that situations present themselves and you have to know when to be aggressive and when not to.
And as a former pitcher where you stretch out the arm and do long toss, all that stuff, compared to being behind the plate and having to throw quickly to second or third, that different arm slot. When did you learn that you had to shorten that throw up or learn how to throw that way as a catcher? I mean, how did that come naturally for you?
Yeah, so honestly, I've never really shortened my arm up at all. I've kind of embraced that I throw just as hard as anybody from behind home plate, and that's not something that I should give up just to try and get it out quicker, because it might take a little bit longer for me to get rid of it, but it's also going to get there a lot faster than other guys when they throw it. And so I
Yeah.
think obviously I had to get a little bit shorter with it, but I think that I kind of embrace, like, I just need a clean transfer. And for the most part, I have a really good chance of throwing somebody out if I get the ball in my hand cleanly. And so I think that was something that I still struggle with it a little bit. I try and rush. I think I have to rush, but in reality, the baseball moves so much faster than the guys running that if you get the ball out in time, for the most part, I'm going to have a good chance of throwing them out. And so I just kind of embrace a little bit longer of an arm and try and backspin the crap out of it the second.
So, Ryan, we've referenced your junior season a lot, your final year with the program in 2024, also some other specific games throughout your career. But, what's a game or a couple games that really stand out in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to deny how special the regional was my junior year. I think it was obviously heartbreaking. I don't think any of us expected to not win that regional, especially once we got to that Monday. It was tough, that first Evansville game, but then the way that we were able to just come together and realize, like, our story's not finished. Like, we can kind of determine it. Like, God wouldn't let this happen for no reason if we couldn't figure out what he wanted us to do with it. And I think we did an unbelievable job of, all right, well, now there's nothing else to do but win one game. And how do you do that? You win one inning at a time. And I just think for some reason, like, when stuff really, really matters, I think is when I play my best. Like, I think when pressure's on the line, I think when there's a lot of people watching, like, for some reason, I have the ability to slow myself down a little bit. And that's kind of what I did that weekend. And without a doubt, it was the best baseball that I've ever played in my life, especially once the conference tournament started in Clearwater. I think from there on, it's probably the best that I played in college, which I don't know if there's a better time to play better baseball than that time of year. But I think the Evansville game, though, the first regional final game, was probably the most special one in my career. I hit a homer in the first inning, and the bat flip was terrible, but all I know is that 10,000 people jumped straight up out of the sky, and I could feel it all happening in slow motion. And so I was rounding second base, and I was like, I did it. Like, in a way of, like, my freshman year here, I was like thinking I'm never going to be good enough to actually play here, to here I am playing at my dream school with my best friends in the world, in front of the best fans in the world. And I just put us up in the regional final game with a homer. Like, I'm rounding second base. Like, I'm getting chills right now talking about it. It's like, it's what you dream of and it's what you work for. And some people aren't lucky enough to be given the opportunity to come through in moments like that. And I'm very blessed and thankful that I was, but that weekend was really special to me.
Yeah, I was sitting on the first base
And
line, and that was Clark LeClaire was certainly a very electric. It was a no doubter off the bat. Go ahead, Will.
Yeah. No, what I was going to say, now you're in the same organization as Chase Burns. How was that game hitting against him?
So I think that game can contribute more to my success as a hitter after that than any other game that I've played in. Like, that guy's obviously got some of the best stuff that you'll ever see. And I think that as a team, we did an unbelievable job of sticking to a plan against him and understanding, like, we've got to take something away from him. Because if we try and cover everything that he's throwing in every area that he's going to throw it, like, we watched video from the UNC game when he faced him the first time at Wake Forest, and he carved them just by going back foot slider, or it might have been an ACC tournament when he carved them. It's like back foot slider. It's 92. It's like, well, it looks like a fastball until it's not. And then it's on your back foot already and you're swinging and missing. So, like, we just pushed everything up and away against him and realized, like, yeah, it's 100 and it's going to get there quick. But if you don't look up and away, if you don't look away in the window you want, that you're going to swing at what he wants you to swing at all day. And my first at bat against him was like a 7-pitch at bat. I think I struck out on a slider down, but he had thrown me like 2 curveballs. And so they were 84. So I was like, surely that's the slider. But it wasn't, because he threw me a slider at like 89. And I was like, that's the best pitch I've ever seen in my life. But it was definitely unique being able to, like, go in there and, like, you have to just beat this guy down. And, like, I got lucky enough in the 5th inning of that game. Like, he hung me a curveball 0-2 and I hit it down the left field line. And I didn't crap on it or anything, but I hit it hard enough and I got down and tied the game. And then JC worked a walk and Dixon had the biggest homer I've ever been a part of. And it was cool. And
that was electric stuff.
Yeah. Like, I would walk by Chase Burns in spring training last year and, like, right after the draft and be like, And the 2-1 to Williams. That's hit out high to right field, right center field. It's going back. It's gone. It's gone. Dixon Williams put ECU up 4-1. And he'd be like,
That's
dude, can you
awesome.
just shut up? And I'd be
So
like,
yeah, and
sorry.
you were talking about
I'll call that.
you guys watched his game against the Tar Heels in the tournament. I think his stuff had the umpire fooled that game because he was getting all kinds of calls that were outside the zone. So,
Yeah.
and that leads me to my next question: catching and getting your pitcher extra strikes when they're outside the zone, et cetera. How do you work on that?
Yeah, that's a big thing that I'm working on right now, just getting better defensively because obviously I'm an offensive first catcher, but the more strikes I can steal, the more I can bring behind the plate, the better. And so a lot of it now is just like working on, I'm catching off of a knee all the time now, which helps because I'm a little bit bigger and I had back problems my sophomore year. So being healthy helps with that. But I think just like ripping balls up off the machine and like making the same move over and over and over, like consistency goes such a long way. And so I'm not the best in the world at it yet, but I'm planning on getting there at some point here soon.
Yeah, I was going to mention that you're a taller type catcher as well. So, yeah, Bubba, go ahead. I'm going to wait for my next question.
You've talked about a little bit about your relationship with Coach Godwin and how you're a talker, and he wasn't necessarily very fond of that at first. But if you would, tell us what you can as far as the way your relationship with Coach grew, and then specifically, since we were talking about the Wake Forest game, I know Cliff has talked about it to the media and in multiple interviews, his pregame hitters meeting and just how fired up he was that day.
Yeah. So like Coach Godwin and I, we always got along, but I think there was a little bit of tension there where it was like, I don't know. I think at first I felt like I was being told to be somebody that I was not, but I think over time I was able to learn that I was being taught how to grow. I just didn't really understand that at face value. It sounded like I was being told like change who you are, and that's not what it was. I think that being 23 now, I'm able to see that, but I think as a 18, 19-year-old, it was kind of hard. You're in a new environment, new people, and he was just like, he was so good my junior year, I think, of listening to me and understanding me. And I think that that's like being somewhere for 3 years is so valuable because you get to learn people. Like, I think like in reality, the world's of people. It's for like, what's the best way to put this? Like, it's a people person world, you know, like you have to learn people, you have to build relationships with people. And I think that once he could learn that I did care and I cared not just about myself, but everyone around me. And I wanted to be the best version of myself for the team, that I think that we really were able to, like, our relationship kind of skyrocketed. And I think that I'm so thankful he stuck with me for as long as he did, because I was incredibly hard headed and I was not nearly the person that I am now. And I think he goes a long way in creating who I am now.
So each of your 3 summers, you had played with the Burlington Sock Puppets. That first summer, I guess, following the 2022 season, that was far and away the most ABs you had with the Sock Puppets. But you had a lot of success there in Burlington. And but if you would explain to our listeners why it didn't necessarily translate. Of course, you weren't getting as consistent of at bats, but then in 2024, it all came together for you. And like Johnny Stats mentioned, you hit almost 450 with runners on base. And then, as you mentioned, those last 9 to 10 games of your career, I think you finished your career with a 9-game hit streak and hitting close to 450.
Yeah, I think Burlington was an amazing place to me. That's one of the best places I've ever been, best people I've been around. Like, it was such a unique environment, and I was able to actually, I think, just like test myself. Like, what am I capable of? Like, going out and playing every single day. Like, it's a little different than in college where it's a 3-game series. You have 3 days off during the week, or 3 days off during the week. But like, when you're playing every single day, it just comes down to it. It's just baseball. Like, how can you get results that day, and how can you turn it around and get results the next day? Because the day before doesn't matter at all. And I think that it took me 2 good years there to realize how that applied to college baseball every single day, because it's a little bit different. But I think that I was able to learn myself as a hitter, learn areas of the plate that I was able to dominate, and translate that over to playing at ECU, and understanding that just because we have an approach 1 through 9 at ECU, it doesn't mean that I can't still follow that approach, but also narrow it down to something that works specifically for me, because as like I tended to chase spin a lot in college because the guys would go heater in and then slider down and in off it. And so it's like, how can I lay off pitches that I need to lay off depending on what our approach is that day? And so I think that it was huge for me playing there for 2.5, 3 years. I played, 3 summers there. Eventually, after my junior year, I got a few at bats there, but I think that I finally was able to put it in place. And then Bryant Packard helped me a ton my junior year of I'd go to him and be like, all right, I'm going to follow our team's approach, but how does it work specifically for me? How can I get the most out of this team approach while also keeping the chain connected, And so I just think it came down to maturing a little bit and not just caring I want to get hit, so I'm going to do this. It's that's not how it works, dude. It's just that's not the real world. So I think it was unbelievable for my development.
Yeah, and Bubba mentioned you were you had a lot of success there, but you were a legend for Burlington Sock Puppets. So you had some great years there, obviously. But I wanted to get with you on how that transitions to the pro style of preparation. At ECU, you have a team concept, you're always together, et cetera. When you're at the pro level, explain how that's a little bit different. It's more of an individual type thing going on when you do your training.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a tough adjustment to make where you go from every game being the end all be all, this is all that matters now, to guys only caring about themselves and them getting results. And I think that it was a struggle for me at first, guys going 0 for 4 and slamming stuff and being pissed off. And I'm like, we won. They're like, I don't care. I'm like, this is bizarre to me that anyone can think like that. And so I think I kind of had to translate to the pro side. These guys can do what they want to do, but my goal is to make the Cincinnati Reds the best organization that I can make them. And so how can I go about making the Cincinnati Reds organization better today? That's helping my minor league team win that day, because that's me growing as a person and my team winning, which looks good on the Reds, right? So I think that without my 3 years at school, I don't know how I would have handled failure this past season. I think I hit 170 after April this past year, and I think was 0 for 20 something at one point. And I think if I would have gone out of high school, I don't think I would have been ready for that at all. And so I'm so glad I was able to be the person that I was able to be after being at ECU and after meeting my fiance and stuff, just growing up a little bit. But in the minor leagues, realizing what you did the day before doesn't matter at all, because you have to play a game the next day. And guess what? The guy's going to be throwing 100 again. And his job is to get you out. So if you get out 4 times again, it's okay, because you're going to get to wake up and do it again. But it's definitely a grind.
Yeah, and playing at Burlington, I'm sure that kind of helped you understand that daily routine. You have to step up the next day. It's just a completely different day. So, yeah
absolutely.
Great
You can't
stuff.
I really struggled. I'm a chronic overthinker when it comes to are my mechanics messed up? What am I doing wrong? When a lot of times, this year, the biggest thing I learned when I got to Dayton, Troy Gingrich is the hitting coach there, and he just asked me 2 questions every time I'd ask him something. He'd be like, were you on time? Did you swing at something you could do damage on? And if you don't answer yes to both of those, then it's not a mechanics thing. You need to go figure out how to be on time and how to swing at better pitches. And once you learn that, I was like, you just made the hardest thing in the world, hitting a baseball, the most simple thing in the world to me. And that's the stuff that I need.
So last year, I think you had 67 games in which you played in Daytona Beach, and then, like you mentioned, you spent the last 20 or so of the season in high A ball up in Dayton with the Dragons. So what can you tell us about your status, going into Arizona and spring training in the 2026 season?
Yeah, I think my goal, obviously, if I start in high A again, it's another unbelievable opportunity. I think that the perspective that I kind of have on the whole thing now is I'm still playing. I'm getting paid to play the game that I learned in my grandparents' backyard when I was 2 years old, and I get to do it with my best friends in the world. I get to do it I get to take my fiance out to Arizona, and we get to go on a road trip together. You know what I mean? This is the coolest job in the world. How can I not? When they say how can you not be romantic about baseball, it's honestly, how can you not be romantic about it? It's giving me things in my life that I don't deserve, that God's blessing me with. And I think my whole goal for this year is to just prove to people I make teams better just by being there. How can I be the best person today? How can I make everyone around me better today? And my goal obviously is to compete for a spot in AA, but if that doesn't happen, I'm gonna I'm going to approach every day in high A to where they're like, well, we can't keep this guy here. We got to move him up at some point. And at some point, there's no more times you can get called up because you're in the big leagues, right? So I'm hoping to get to a point where they can only call you down.
One of the things, Ryan, we talked about off the air is your brother, Brandon. Ryan Sproul from the Jungle says, we miss you, Ryan. So glad we still get that McCrystal magic when Brando stops by. So that's a nice transition to just, what the ECU fans, you've referenced a couple times, just how special Pirate Nation is and the atmosphere at Clark LeClaire in the Jungle. But talk about what your brother means to you and his support at the games, and then also just the Pirate fans as a whole.
Yeah, Brando, as everyone knows, is the best support system I think anybody could possibly have. Like, he was way more famous than I was my first 2 years at ECU, and I'm sure he's still talked about there more than I am, because how can you not love that kid, right? Like, just like it, I don't know. It makes me smile ear to ear when I talk about him just being there in his gold chains and his sunglasses. People stopping saying hey to him that I have no idea who they are. They all know Brando, like it's just a joy that you can't help but smile when you're around him. And so it was so unbelievable. Like, and I'm so grateful for how everyone in Pirate Nation like embraced him, and no one judged him. You know what I mean? Like, no one cared anything about who he was, what he had to deal with. Like, it's Brandon. He's the ECU baseball fan. It's like, you're Brandon's brother. To me, like, yeah, I'm Brandon's brother. Like, he's the man. So like, I'm so grateful for Pirate Nation, just like embracing him, and like, he's such a joy to be around and every single day. But I mean, really, it's hard not to want to get up and play your best baseball and work as hard as you can every day when you know the support system that ECU is going to give you every single time you take to that field. So it was definitely something that it still drives me to this day. Like, I want to play in front of as many people as possible, and I want to play in front of the best fans in the country. And I definitely did that for 3 years.
You had a
Hey,
couple of
Ryan, thank you for asking that question, because I got texted by two different people that they want to know, what's Brandon's baseball career doing? Like, is he planning on playing again this summer?
Oh yeah. Him and I were going through his walk-up songs for his Miracle League the other day in the car. So he's working on a couple right now. He's got some walk-up songs in the works, but yeah, he's definitely playing this year. He's going to be the first draft pick again in the Miracle League.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great stuff. And I think this was actually off the air, but tell Pirate Nation. I know you had a couple of awesome Jungle stories. One before you actually got to ECU, when you're just a fan, back in something like 2018 or 2019, and then I think you had one or two, from your time as a Pirate, when you were in the bullpen or maybe otherwise.
Yeah. So the first story I ever had was the first time I ever went out into the jungle with my best friend growing up. We were like, all right, they're hilarious. So we got to go out there and like see what they're all about. And it was the game where Tulane was there. I think it was 2018, but the guy's Twitter username was Sexy Lexi. So the jungle was calling him that all game. And this dude was a hothead. And so he ended up turning around, cussing out the jungle. And the first thing I heard when he started cussing out was, hey man, there's kids here. And it's just so funny to me how like, it is so family friendly, but man, some of the stuff that's said out there can really get to these kids. And it was like, this is crazy to me what's happening right now. They had to move this guy to right field because they were chirping him too bad in the jungle. It's crazy. And then like you see the guys like my freshman year, the left fielder from, I think it was Quinnipiac, like he came back after they lost and was a part of the jungle. Like, it's such a unique experience. Like, it's just not something you find everywhere. Like, it's unbelievable out there.
Yeah, and so many stories like that down through the years. Like you mentioned, the Quinnipiac team, they adopted the jungle, and they were getting food from the guys out there, Dill Day and Plummer and all those guys. And then I remember way back, I guess it was probably 15 or 20 years ago, Pepperdine played in the Keith LeClaire Classic, and the left fielder from Pepperdine sent Dill Day and them some Pepperdine baseball gear to wear. So that was pretty cool. But really appreciate your time tonight. Before we let you run, wanted to go through a bit of a speed round here. So let's start off with growing up, because now it's obviously the Cincinnati Reds. That's the only right answer. But who was your favorite team growing up?
I was a diehard Phillies fan. My dad grew up in Delaware, so I always grew up a Eagles, Phillies fan, and I guess you could say Sixers and Flyers, but I don't really follow that stuff too much.
All right. Who's your favorite player?
Oh, that was Chase Utley without a doubt. I love that dude. I grew up wanting to always be filthy, like every uniform he ever put on.
Favorite baseball movie?
Field of Dreams, or maybe Moneyball. I don't know. Those are tied for one.
Favorite place to eat in Greenville?
Ooh, I love Cubbies.
And then outside of baseball, what's your favorite hobby? I think I know what this answer is going to be from just listening to you on Pirate Radio, but
Yeah, it's golf without a doubt.
golf.
I'm completely. I got my fiance addicted to it now too. So now I got somebody else dragging me out of the house to go play. In my first hole in one last week, lost my mind playing by myself. It was awful. I FaceTimed her so that she could see that it was real.
So does your fiance just drive the cart, or does she play?
No, she plays. She's lefty
Nice.
too. So she got my old clubs and she picked it up ridiculously fast. It's one of the more impressive things I've ever seen in my life. Like she just picked it up and she hits the ball a lot straighter than I do.
So during your free time, you ever watch any? Obviously, YouTube golf. It's become a pretty big thing. Like with Good. Ever watch any of their stuff or any other famous YouTube golfers?
Oh yeah, I watch tons of it. It's such a good outlet for me to still be competitive, but also I'm not supposed to be the best in the world at this. Like at the end of the day, like my job as a professional baseball player is to try to be the best in the world, and no one gives a crap. I'm the best in the world at golf, so it's fun to be competitive, but also there's a little bit more slack there.
Yeah, no doubt. One of the ones that I really enjoy watching is the Break 50 with Bryce and DeChambeau. Yeah. Those are really good, and that was pretty cool here in the last couple of months where he and Steph Curry broke 50.
Yeah, that was freakish to watch. Steph Curry's like unbelievable. Like I first of all, when it comes to golf, I used to think I was a lot better than I actually was. Like I would not play ball down. I would take a second ball and play it and count the second score. But I've tried to stop doing that. And then you realize how good how good the professionals actually are. Because I'm pretty sure I shot a 58 on 9 holes at one point this offseason when I had the shank. So that was definitely humbling.
Well, Ryan, really appreciate the time. Wool, JR, do you guys have anything else for him before we let him run?
I just wanted to give him props for his all of a sudden you're a triples machine. How did that happen? I think you hit one at East Carolina, but you've already got 3, and you've got I think you played 20 games at Dayton, correct? I believe that's how many you played. You've got 8 multi-hit games and 20 games, including your second, third, and fourth game consecutively. You've hit a double in 3 consecutive games. You had a 4-hit game, and when you were at Daytona Beach, you were batting .436, 17 to 39 in the leadoff position. Since when are you a leadoff hitter? I know you're probably that's not your future, but man, I don't think you've ever played that before. You certainly adapted that well. So I was just marveling at your speed that you're.
Yeah, well, I think that's the first thing that jumps off the table to anyone when they see me play is that guy can really run, and so I think that's why they tossed me in the leadoff spot. No, but leadoff spot's one of the few times where you're almost guaranteed a first pitch fastball, and as someone that swings 60% of the time on the first pitch, that was a really good opportunity for me to get a first pitch fastball. So I love hitting leadoff. I as many at bats as I can get because hitting's the most fun thing in the world to me.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's something as you guys will recall. Obviously, Ryan, but Wool and JR, you'll recall that Cliff's done that down through the years. Whoever our hottest bat's been, even though it's not your stereotypical leadoff guy, he's put in that leadoff spot. But
yeah, I think I hit leadoff like 2 games my sophomore year too against I want to say William and Mary, but I could be wrong. What's the George Mason? That's who it was.
Oh, opening weekend? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I love hitting leadoff though.
Again, Ryan, really appreciate you spending an hour with us. Best of luck this season, and we'd love to have you back on sometime down the road.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me. It was a lot of fun.
Pirate Nation, that is Ryan McCrystal. Really appreciate his time tonight. Definitely wish him nothing but the best as he moves into the 2026 season with the Cincinnati Reds. But right now, a couple other items that I wanted to discuss before we get out of here on episode 70, and that is today, guys, unfortunately saw the news that Mark Marquis, the legendary Stanford coach, passed away. 1,627 career wins, 2 national titles there at his alma mater, 3-time NCAA National Coach of the Year, and 14 College World Series.
Yeah, legendary coach. Yeah, rest in peace, coach.
But I just think back to watching, as you can recall, Wool, back during your career and shortly thereafter, and really for quite a while, well into the 2000s, outside of the College World Series, there wasn't an abundance of college baseball on television. But I remember each year in Omaha, there were certain teams that were fixtures, and of course LSU was billed as the team of the '90s, and rightfully so. But Stanford was another program that was there pretty much every other year, if not more.
Yeah, Longhorns, Stanford, LSU. Yep, the usual suspects.
But definitely didn't want to let the show go by without mentioning the great Mark Marquis, and I think, something like fourth all time in wins with, like I said,
Yeah, incredible.
1,627. But something else, guys, and that is, you saw there on the screen that the Pirates, and this has been out there for a couple weeks or more now, but forgotten to mention on our more recent shows, and that is that we're ranked 24th by Baseball America, 25th by The Perfect Game, and then D1 Baseball has us just outside, somewhere in the 26 to 30 range.
Yeah, well deserved. I think that's fair. Those rankings are where I'd probably put them.
Yep, deep lineup, ECU history. I expect them to be better than that, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I kind of like it though, Wool, that we can move up.
Oh yeah,
because we are unproven, but we know as fans that follow this team, we know what we have, probably more than they do. But yeah, I think it's fair by the voters to put us there. But yeah, like you, I think we're better.
Guys, let's promote some of our recent content, and then we'll get out of here. First, though, let's show appreciation to our sponsor, and that is, of course, PGX Gloves. Appreciate the support of Mark Minikasi, former East Carolina third baseman and current manager of the Hagerstown Flying Boxcars. Really loyal support from Kaz for Jungle Tales, and we certainly appreciate it. There you see the promo code Jungle Tales in all caps with no spaces. Again, Jungle Tales in all caps with no spaces, 25% off your order at checkout. And there you see some of his excellent selection of batting gloves, the Miami Vice gloves, Eye of the Tiger, Goat, and then, of course, the angry clown face, which is JR's favorite. But also, 2 weeks from Sunday night, we'll have our season debut of This Week in Pirate Baseball, as we'll take a look back at that season opening series. Hopefully 3 games, weather permitting, against the Xavier Musketeers, 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon, 2 o'clock on Saturday, and 12:30 in the series finale on Sunday. And then, if you haven't had an opportunity to listen to our positional preview, go back and check that out. That was episode 66. Then the ensuing episode, that following day, we talked about the pitching staff, which is, of course, led by preseason American Conference Pitcher of the Year, Ethan Norby, who's also a preseason first-team All-American by D1 Baseball. And then, of course, we'll have more content headed your way on Sunday evening. We'll be joined by a former East Carolina pitcher and current Minnesota Twin. Somewhere in that organization, we'll see where he starts. This year he was signed in September, and that is Jake Hunter, who had an excellent final season with the Pirates in 2025. But be sure to follow us on social media at Jungle Tales Pod on X, Instagram, and then you can find us by simply searching Jungle Tales, a Pirate Baseball podcast, on YouTube, Facebook, and Spotify. But if you guys don't have anything else, we'll go ahead and wrap things up. Pirate Nation, you heard from Ryan McCrystal. We appreciated his visit, and we'll talk to you soon here on Jungle Tales. And as always, go Pirates.